Immerse yourself in the tranquil and timeless world of Chinese calligraphy with this captivating story. Discover the rich history, philosophy, and beauty behind every stroke as we explore the ancient art form that has been practiced for centuries. From the delicate brushstrokes to the meditative process of creating meaningful characters, Chinese calligraphy is not just an art. It's a profound journey of mindfulness and spiritual connection. In this story, you'll learn about the tools, techniques, and intentions behind this revered tradition as we guide you through each stage of the creative process. Experience the graceful flow of ink, the subtle pauses between strokes, and the energy that transforms a simple brush into a powerful expression of thought. Whether you're a seasoned artist or a beginner, this story will inspire you to appreciate the beauty of imperfection and the profound connection between mind, body, and art. Join us on this calming exploration of Chinese calligraphy and let it inspire you to slow down, reflect, and appreciate the art of living in the moment. Perfect for relaxation, meditation, or learning a new art form. Settle on your beds as I lull you to sleep with this beautiful piece. Kindly, we would love to be your daily sleep companion, so subscribe and hit the notification bell so you will not miss out on us daily. Welcome. Take a deep breath and join me as we step quietly into the world of Chinese calligraphy. This practice, which has been revered for centuries, offers us a chance to reflect on the art of stillness and the beauty of the slow and deliberate. Today, we will journey through the quiet art of the brush, where each stroke is a form of expression, a symbol of calm, a fleeting moment captured on paper. Before the brush is even lifted, there is a sense of purpose. This is not a hurried process. There is no rush. In fact, the very act of preparation is an essential part of the process. The space must be made ready. The environment must settle. Every aspect of this practice invites you to slow down, to appreciate the smallest movements. As we begin, let's take a moment to observe the tools of the trade. Here we see the inkstone, an essential item that has accompanied Chinese calligraphy for thousands of years. The inkstone itself is smooth, worn down over generations of use. It is made from a particular type of rock that allows the ink to be ground to a fine texture. The ink is thick, dark, almost rich in its appearance, yet its full potential is unlocked only when the brush touches it. In the old Chinese practice, there was a saying that an artist is nothing without their tools. This is not only true for the artists themselves, but also for the space in which they work. The simple act of grinding ink becomes an invitation to enter into a state of stillness. With every turn of the ink stick against the stone, we create not only the ink, but also the atmosphere, the very medium in which art will unfold. Notice the deliberate, rhythmic motion of the grinding ink stick. This motion, so simple, is done with an awareness that transcends mere necessity. It is meditative. It is mindful. With every circle made, the brush prepares to bring something into being, something that will carry with it the grace of the artist's hand and the gentleness of their spirit. The brush itself is no less significant. It is not merely a tool. It is an extension of the artist. The bristles are soft yet resilient, designed to carry ink in its purest form. As the artist prepares to dip the brush into the inkstone, notice the pause. There is no hurry. The brush is lifted slowly, almost as if in reverence. It is a sacred act. The brush must be dipped gently, ensuring that only the right amount of ink is taken, just enough to form the perfect stroke. As the brush touches the ink, the artist is not simply preparing to write. This is an invitation to connect, to align. Every action here has purpose. The delicate touch of the ink on the brush does not simply saturate it. It speaks to the beginning of a flow, an energy that will soon transfer to the paper. And in this moment, the artist is in the present, fully immersed in the action, present with the ink, the brush, the paper, and themselves. Now, we turn to the paper. Unlike the harshness of modern materials, rice paper holds an almost delicate nature. It is not thick or rigid. It is soft, absorbent, and fragile in its own right. The very texture of rice paper invites gentleness, as if it too understands the importance of the strokes it will bear. When the brush touches the paper, it is not an impact. It is a union, a gentle meeting of two worlds. As the first stroke is made, notice the intention behind it. The brush does not rush. There is no urgency. It moves with grace, tracing the lines with a fluid motion, each curve a soft reflection of the artist's state of mind. This is not a hurried act. It is a conversation between the artist and the paper, between thought and action. The ink spreads gently across the surface, leaving behind a mark, a subtle trace that represents a moment in time. Each stroke is done with deliberation. The artist takes their time, allowing their hand to follow the natural flow of their inner world. At this moment, the brush is more than a tool. It is a mediator of expression, carrying with it the quiet thoughts and emotions of the artist. In Chinese calligraphy, there is no distinction between the act of writing and the act of breathing. Both are essential for life. Both are slow, purposeful, and filled with intention. There is something deeply meditative about this pause. It is not idle time. It is a time of reflection. The artist steps back, observing their work, letting the ink dry slightly before continuing. This space between strokes is where the artist connects once more with the rhythm of their own breath, with the flow of the world around them. The calligraphy is not rushed. It unfolds naturally, like the growth of a tree or the turning of a season. Notice how the character begins to take form. The strokes flow naturally, each building on the last. The first stroke has prepared the way for the next. This slow, methodical pace allows the artist to remain in the present. There is no rush to finish. There is no desire for perfection. Each character, when it is complete, is simply a moment captured in ink, a reflection of time and the artist's spirit. The character is now complete, but even in completion, there is a sense of stillness. The work is not hurried. It exists quietly, waiting to be observed, appreciated, and understood. In Chinese calligraphy, as in life, there is no end, only continual flow. The ink on paper represents a moment that lives beyond the act of creation. It lingers in the space it occupies. Let us take a moment to reflect on what we have witnessed. The quiet act of creation, the calm of the brush meeting the paper, is an invitation for all of us to slow down, to pause, to reflect. For in this space of stillness, we are reminded of the profound beauty that lies in each fleeting moment. As we move further into the world of Chinese calligraphy, we begin with the preparation of an essential and thoughtful process that holds within it the very essence of the art. Before a single stroke is made, there is a period of quiet, a time of readiness. This is where we start to understand that calligraphy is not just about what is written. It is about the moment before, the preparation that allows for the brush to flow naturally and with intention. Take a moment to watch as the inkstone is prepared. It may seem like a simple task grinding ink with a stone, but in reality, this action is imbued with meaning. The process is slow, deliberate. The ink stick, held firmly in hand, is gently moved in a circular motion, coaxing the pigment into the water beneath it. With each circle, the ink becomes richer, darker, and more potent. There is no rush here, only care. In the ancient tradition, the creation of ink itself was a revered art. The finest inks were made from the purest soot, ground meticulously into a liquid that would flow gracefully onto paper. The stone known as the inkstone is more than just a tool. It is an anchor, a grounding piece in the ritual of calligraphy. The artist takes their time, ensuring the ink reaches the right consistency. Not too thin, not too thick, but perfect for the strokes that are to come. As the ink is prepared, the calligrapher pauses. The brush is dipped gently into the stone, not too deeply, only enough to coat the tip. This moment is not rushed. In fact, it may be the most important part of the entire process. The artist must take care to ensure that the brush holds just the right amount of ink. Too much ink, and the character will become heavy, saturated, losing its flow. Too little, and the brush will not glide smoothly across the paper. There is balance here. The testing of the brush is a moment of reassurance. The artist confirms that the ink is perfect, the brush is ready, and the space is still. Now, they are prepared. This is not just a matter of physical readiness. It is also a spiritual readiness. In these quiet moments, the artist centers themselves. They become one with their surroundings, the tools, and the task at hand. Notice how everything is arranged. Every tool has its place. The brush is gently placed by the side of the inkstone, waiting for its turn. The rice paper is laid flat on the table, pristine and waiting for the first stroke. There is order here, a harmony in the space that reflects the order within the artist's mind. Let's take a moment to appreciate the brush. It is an instrument of precision and grace, designed for fluidity and control. A brush used for Chinese calligraphy is not simply a paintbrush, it is a fine-tuned tool. The bristles are carefully crafted from animal hair, often from the finest of weasels, goats, or rabbits. The handle, typically made of bamboo, is smooth and slender. It is a tool built for comfort, balance, and harmony. When the brush is held, it feels light, as if it is an extension of your own hand. When the brush is lifted, notice how the artist grips it. It is held lightly, not with force, but with grace. The calligraphy brush is meant to feel natural in the hand, an extension of the artist's thoughts. The way the brush is held, the gentle tension between the fingers, allows for a variety of strokes, from fine, delicate lines to bold, sweeping arcs. The brush should never feel rigid. It should feel like an organic part of the process, following the natural flow of the artist's energy. As we sit here with the artist, fully prepared, we enter into a meditative space together. Notice how the room has become quieter. Every action, every moment is deliberate. This is a space where time slows down, where thoughts settle like leaves falling gently from a tree. We are no longer in a hurry. We are not racing against time. We are in this moment, entirely. The preparation has brought us here, and now we are ready to move forward. It is said that before the first stroke is made, the calligrapher must clear their mind. This is not simply about preparing the tools. It is about preparing oneself. A clear mind is essential to the work at hand. If the mind is clouded, the strokes will not flow. But if the mind is calm, clear, and centered, the ink will follow the brush with ease. This is the true essence of preparation, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. Look closely at the stillness. There is no rush to begin. The mind is calm, settled into the quiet rhythm of the space. The artist breathes deeply, feeling the weight of the air, the soft rustle of the paper beneath their hand. This moment of quiet, this deep pause is part of the practice. It is as important as any stroke that will follow. And so, we are ready. The first stroke is made, not in haste, but in perfect alignment with the peacefulness that has been cultivated. It is not just a stroke of ink, it is the beginning of a journey that started with careful preparation, where each tool, each movement, and each breath was considered. Now, it is time to begin. As we leave behind the moment of preparation, we carry with us the knowledge that every stroke, every brush, and every action is made with intention. The ink that fills the brush is not just pigment, it is the essence of the moment itself. As we transition from the preparation to the act of creation, we step into a moment of stillness and grace, the first brush stroke. In Chinese calligraphy, the first stroke is more than just the beginning of a character. It is a meditation. It is the culmination of everything that has come before it, the preparation, the clearing of the mind, the quietness of the space. Notice how the brush is held. It is not gripped tightly. Rather, it is held with the gentlest of touches. The artist's fingers are relaxed, with a subtle tension only in the areas where the brush is supported. This is not an action done with force. It is done with delicacy. The brush is merely an extension of the artist's thoughts and intentions. Before the brush meets the paper, there is a moment of stillness. In this brief pause, the artist collects their thoughts, aligning with the rhythm of their breath, and tunes into the flow of the space around them. There is no rush, no urgency. This is a sacred moment where the outside world fades away, and only the brush, the ink, and the paper remain. And now, the brush meets the paper. The stroke is light, gentle, almost hesitant at first. The brush glides across the surface, finding its path. It does not press heavily into the paper. Instead, it dances lightly, tracing the shape of the character that is beginning to form. The first stroke is often the most delicate. It sets the tone for the rest of the character. Notice the fluidity of the brush's movement. It is not jagged or rushed. Each movement flows into the next, much like the movement of water in a stream. There is no forceful intention here. The brush, in its grace, moves with the flow, guided by the artist's steady hand and calm mind. As the brush moves, it leaves behind a mark, a subtle imprint of time, of thought, of breath. Each stroke, as it forms, carries with it a sense of softness. There is a contrast between the lightness of the brush and the depth of the ink. The brush glides over the paper with an almost feather-like touch, but the ink it leaves behind is rich, dark, and full of meaning. This balance between lightness and depth is key to Chinese calligraphy. The brush must float, but the ink must be heavy with significance. As the strokes continue, the character begins to take form. It is not rushed. The brush moves with purpose, but without haste. Each curve, each angle, is a step in the unfolding of the character. The brush doesn't just create the form, it gives the form life. The artist's hand moves with intention, but it is guided by the character itself, the ancient shape that has been passed down through generations. The brushstrokes are made with a specific rhythm in mind. The artist does not hurry, but moves with a sense of quiet determination. The strokes are formed with care, their beginning, middle, and end flowing seamlessly into each other. Each part of the character is connected, not just by the ink on the paper, but by the energy of the artist's hand. There is a connection between the physical and the spiritual in this process of unity of body, mind, and spirit. Notice how each new stroke builds upon the last. It is not just about creating a line on paper. Each stroke is a conversation with the previous one. The brush guides the hand, and the hand follows the brush. Together, they create something new, a character, a word, a meaning. It is an ongoing dialogue between the artist and their medium. At this moment, the artist pauses. They step back and observe. The character is not yet finished, but the artist must take a moment to reflect. This is not a mechanical process. The artist is not simply reproducing shapes. They are giving life to the character, and in doing so, they must reflect on its form. The pause is just as important as the stroke. It allows the artist to assess, to adjust, and to align their focus. Now the brush presses slightly deeper into the paper, the ink becoming darker, bolder. The artist's hand has moved from gentle strokes to more defined, confident marks. This is the second layer of the character from beginning to come into full expression. Notice the careful pressure applied to the brush. It is neither too strong nor too light. The brush is still under control, but now it conveys more of the artist's intention, more of the energy within them. Each character in Chinese calligraphy is more than just a collection of lines and curves. It is a reflection of the artist's inner world. The stroke, the pressure, the speed, all reflect the calligrapher's mood, their state of mind. At this moment, the artist must focus fully. There is no distraction, no hurry. The brush and the paper become the sole focus, and in this focus, the character is born. Notice the final strokes. There is no rush to finish. The artist is not thinking about completing the character. They are thinking only of the next stroke, the next movement. This is the essence of calligraphy. It is not about the end result, but about the flow. Each stroke, each line, must be allowed to live in its own moment without the pressure of completion. And now, the first character is complete. The brush rests, the ink dries, and the space around the paper feels quieter. The character stands there alive, full of meaning, full of energy. But it is more than just a character. It is a manifestation of a moment, of time spent in contemplation, in stillness, and in purpose. As we leave the world of the brush and ink for now, let us carry with us the understanding that the beauty of calligraphy lies not just in the form, but in the flow of the process. The strokes, the pauses, the careful movements, all are part of the journey. It is in the act of creation itself that we find meaning. Now, as we move deeper into the art of Chinese calligraphy, we find ourselves entering a world of fluidity, the dance of ink. Each character, though carefully constructed, must possess a certain freedom, a certain flow. It is not enough for the brush to simply trace the outline. The strokes must breathe. They must move with intention, yet without stiffness. It is this dance between the artist's hand and the ink that gives calligraphy its life. Notice, as the brush is lifted again, there is no rush to begin. The hand holds the brush with the same grace, the same quiet intent. But now the artist has entered a new space. The first strokes have formed a character, a static expression. But calligraphy, like life, is not about staying still. It is about movement, about the ongoing flow of ink, thought, and expression. Watch how the brush moves. There is no haste, no tension in the hand. The artist's movements are deliberate but also fluid, as if the brush is dancing across the paper. The ink flows smoothly from the brush, like water flowing in a stream, never forced, never hurried, but always in motion. Each stroke feels like a natural extension of the artist's body, a gentle curve, a soft line, creating a sense of rhythm and grace. The key to this dance is the balance between control and release. The artist must maintain control over the brush, over the direction, the speed, the pressure, but they must also allow themselves to release the tension. It is the act of letting go that allows the brush to glide freely. Each movement becomes part of a greater flow, a greater rhythm. Notice how the ink flows naturally as the brush moves. The ink is not forced onto the paper. It moves as it wishes. The brush itself is an instrument of release. It allows the ink to spread, to form, to breathe as it travels across the paper. The strokes are full of energy, yet they never feel rushed or chaotic. There is a natural rhythm that guides each movement, creating a sense of harmony between the brush and the paper. Each stroke follows the next in a rhythmic, almost musical pattern. The brush, though guided by the artist's hand, is allowed to follow its own path. It is not rigid, it is free. The flow of ink is not a mechanical process, but a conversation and an exchange between the brush, the paper, and the artist. The dance between the brush and the ink is what gives the character its energy, its life. Sometimes, however, the dance must shift. As the character begins to form, the artist may apply more pressure to the brush. The ink becomes bolder, darker. The flow is still there, but the brushstroke becomes more defined. The artist may press more firmly, creating a line that has more weight. This is a shift in the rhythm, a movement from softness to strength. It is still part of the flow, but now the brush must speak more decisively. The contrast between light and dark, gentle and firm, creates a balance within the character. The flow is not just one of ease, it is also one of tension and release. The brush allows for both lightness and strength, both softness and power. Each stroke, whether light or bold, contributes to the overall harmony of the piece. As the final stroke is made, notice how it completes the character. It is not just a mark on the page, it is a culmination of the rhythm, the dance that has been unfolding. Every stroke has led to this moment. The final stroke, bold and sure, ties together the fluidity of the previous movements. It is a sign of completion, but also a sign of continuous flow. Even as the character is finished, the ink continues to dance, and now the character is complete. It rests on the paper, its form full of movement, full of energy. But even in completion, it is not static. The dance continues. The character lives in the space it occupies, and it speaks to the viewer. It invites reflection, contemplation, and a sense of flow that extends beyond the brushstrokes. Notice how the character, once finished, seems to breathe. It carries within it the rhythm of the artist's hand, the dance of ink across the paper. This is the essence of Chinese calligraphy. It is a dance of energy, a fluid expression of the mind, body, and spirit. It is not about the end result, but about the flow, the movement, the quiet, graceful rhythm that unfolds with each stroke. In Chinese calligraphy, as in life, the flow of energy, whether soft or strong, light or bold, is what creates balance. The dance between the artist and the ink is what brings the character to life. And as we watch the character unfold, we are reminded that true beauty comes from embracing the flow, the rhythm, and the space between each stroke. As we leave this moment of movement behind, we carry with us the understanding that calligraphy, like life, is a dance of balance, fluidity, and grace. The brush moves not only to create form, but to express a deeper rhythm that connects us all. In the dance of ink, we find peace, we find movement, and we find harmony. As we now step into the quieter realm of reflection, we come to understand that Chinese calligraphy is not just an external process, it's an internal one as well. Each stroke, each movement of the brush is a reflection of the artist's state of mind. Just as the brush moves with grace across the paper, so too must the mind move with clarity and calm. The dance of ink, as we have seen, is not simply the product of the hand. It is the product of the mind, the thoughts and emotions that flow with each stroke. In Chinese calligraphy, the act of creating is inseparable from the act of reflection. Before a stroke is made, the artist must clear their mind. The process of creation, much like meditation, demands that the artist be fully present in the moment. Their thoughts must be still, and their intentions must be clear. As we observe this moment of pause, we begin to see that calligraphy is not just about technique, it is about mindfulness. Notice the stillness in the artist. There is no rush to continue, no anxiety about completing the work. Instead, there is a quiet pause, a moment to reflect. This pause is not empty, it is full. The artist is connecting with their work, allowing themselves to step back and observe what has been created, without judgment, without haste. In this stillness, the mind is allowed to rest, to settle. The character, now complete, is a reflection of the artist's mind. Each stroke, each curve, each line is a manifestation of thought. Just as the brush flows naturally across the paper, so too must the artist's thoughts flow gently, without force, without distraction. Calligraphy requires the artist to be fully in tune with their own thoughts and with the rhythm of the brush. In the act of writing, the mind is both focused and relaxed, engaged yet at ease. In Chinese culture, the concept of wu wei, meaning effortless action, is central to the philosophy of calligraphy. The artist must not force the brush. They must allow the brush to move with ease, with natural flow. Similarly, the artist must not force their thoughts. The mind must be clear and open, allowing the strokes to arise naturally from within. This is a practice of being in harmony with the present moment. With each stroke, the artist reflects. They do not act mindlessly. Instead, they reflect on each movement the weight of the brush, the pressure, the rhythm. In Chinese calligraphy, this reflection is as important as the stroke itself. The artist reflects on the character they are creating, but also on themselves, on their state of mind, their emotions, their intentions. The brush becomes a mirror to the mind. Notice how the artist holds the brush. It is not a forceful grip. It is soft, light. The brush does not represent control. It represents balance. The artist's fingers remain relaxed, allowing the brush to move naturally. This is a reflection of the artist's mental state. a state of calmness, of presence, and of mindfulness. The grip is not tight because there is no tension in the mind. In these quiet moments, we see the essence of calligraphy, its connection to the mind. Every character created is a snapshot of the artist's thoughts, their clarity, their inner state. Just as the brush leaves a mark on the paper, the artist leaves a mark on themselves. The act of creation is not just about producing something external, but about bringing forth an internal reflection and expression of the self. Calligraphy is not only an art of outward expression, it is an art of inward reflection. The act of creating the character is a mirror for the artist's mind. If the mind is cluttered, the strokes may lack clarity, but if the mind is clear, the brush flows effortlessly and the character unfolds naturally. The flow of ink reflects the flow of thought. This is the harmony that exists within Chinese calligraphy. As we see the character take form, we witness the balance between intention and reflection. The final stroke, bold and sure, completes the character, but it is not the end. The artist pauses once again, stepping back to reflect on what has been created. This moment of stillness, this moment of reflection, is just as important as the strokes themselves. It is a chance to observe, to notice the flow, the balance, the harmony that has been created. The character now rests on the paper. But it is more than just a visual form. It is a physical manifestation of the artist's mind, a reflection of their focus, their clarity, their state of being. It carries the energy of the artist's thoughts, their emotions, and their spirit. The brush has captured a moment in time, a quiet, thoughtful moment. As we leave this moment of reflection, we carry with us the understanding that calligraphy is not just an outward art form, it is an inward practice. Every brushstroke reflects the artist's state of mind, and in creating, they reflect upon themselves. The process of creation is a mirror of the mind, and in this quiet reflection, we find peace, clarity, and balance. With each stroke, we see that the dance of ink is not just about technique. It is a practice of mindfulness, of presence, and of self-reflection. Just as the artist clears their mind before they begin, so too must we clear our own minds to truly connect with the world around us. At this moment, we understand that calligraphy is not just about creating, it is about being. As we now turn our focus to the deeper energy that flows through every stroke of the brush, we delve into a central concept in Chinese calligraphy, the flow of qi. In Chinese philosophy, qi, often translated as life force or vital energy, is the unseen force that flows through all things. Just as qi flows through the body, through nature, it flows through the brush and ink. It is what gives the strokes their life, their rhythm, and their meaning. Notice how the brush is held in the hand. The artist's grip is light, not tight. This is because qi cannot flow if the body is tense. Just as the brush must move with ease, so too must the artist's body remain relaxed. The hand and brush must work in harmony, allowing the qi to flow freely through the movements. The flow of qi is not something that can be forced. It is something that must be allowed to unfold naturally. As the brush touches the paper, it channels the qi through the bristles, through the artist's hand, and into the paper. This first stroke, though subtle, is full of intention. It carries with it the energy of the artist's focus, their calm mind, and the life force that runs through them. Qi is not just a concept. It is something you can feel in the movement of the brush, in the very flow of ink. The energy in the brush stroke is not limited to the brush itself. It moves through the entire body. Each movement is a channel through which qi flows. The arm, the wrist, the fingers, all of these contribute to the fluidity of the brushstroke. But it is the mind that directs the flow. When the mind is calm, qi flows smoothly. When the mind is cluttered, the brush struggles to move with ease. Think of qi as the breath of the brush, the pulse of the ink. When the brush moves across the paper, it is as if the ink is breathing. The flow of qi ensures that the brush moves smoothly, without interruption, creating lines that are not jagged or forced, but seamless. The ink does not splatter or sputter. It flows across the paper with the same ease and grace as a river flowing through a landscape. The artist's hand guides the brush, but it is qi that gives the brush its direction. Without qi, the brush would have no life. It would simply be a tool, devoid of meaning. But with qi, the brush becomes an extension of the artist's intention, moving naturally, following the flow of energy. The ink, as it spreads across the paper, is the visual representation of this flow. Notice how even in moments of pause, the flow of qi remains. The artist does not stop the flow, they simply allow it to rest for a moment, gathering strength before continuing. This pause is important. It is a moment of stillness, a moment where the energy of the brush and the artist align. It is like the moment between breaths, the pause between one exhale and the next inhale. The artist remains connected to the energy, even in the quiet. Sometimes qi must be guided with more intention. As the brush presses a little more firmly into the paper, it takes on a deeper energy. The strokes become bolder, darker, more pronounced. But even as the pressure increases, the flow remains. There is no rigidity in the brush. It still moves with the natural rhythm, with the pulse of energy. Even in strength, there is softness. The character is now complete, but the energy does not disappear. It remains in the ink, in the paper, in the space around it. Qi has flowed through every stroke, from the first delicate line to the final bold mark. The character is not just a word, it is a symbol of energy, of life, of flow. It is a reflection of the artist's mind, their spirit, and the qi that guides them. As we observe the character, we see that it is not just a collection of strokes, it is a living expression of qi. The flow of energy is not something we see directly, but we feel it in the smoothness of the brush, in the gentle transitions between strokes, in the harmony of the completed character. It is the flow of qi that breathes life into each mark, each stroke, each line. Qi flows through all things, and in Chinese calligraphy, it flows through the brush. It is the unseen force that animates every stroke, every line. The artist's mind, relaxed and centered, channels this energy into the brush, allowing it to move naturally, without force. The flow of qi is what makes each stroke come alive. It is the rhythm that guides the brush and connects the artist to the paper, to the ink, and to themselves. Every stroke of the brush in Chinese calligraphy carries with it a sense of purpose and intention. But as we move further into the practice, we begin to understand an important truth, that the beauty of calligraphy lies not in its perfection, but in its imperfection. It is in the subtle irregularities, the small flaws, and the moments of imperfection that the true spirit of the art is revealed. In Chinese calligraphy, there is no expectation of perfection. In fact, it is the imperfections that breathe life into the work. Each brushstroke is a moment, a reflection of the artist's current state of mind. And just as life itself is not perfect, neither is the brushstroke. The art of calligraphy embraces this imperfection, seeing it not as a flaw, but as an integral part of the creative process. Notice the first stroke here. It is light, delicate, and not perfectly straight. The curve of the line is not sharp or rigid. It is soft, flowing, and slightly irregular. Yet this imperfection is what gives the stroke its character. It adds warmth, life, and personality to the character. It is as though the brush itself has a subtle will, a presence that cannot be controlled. This imperfection is not to be corrected, but embraced. Each stroke that follows carries with it its own set of imperfections. The brush moves confidently, but there are small variations in the pressure and direction. Sometimes the ink pools slightly, creating a darker spot on the page. Other times, the brush leaves a lighter mark as the ink begins to fade. These variations are not mistakes, they are the essence of life. They reflect the artist's journey, the ebb and flow of energy as they work. In Chinese philosophy, there is a concept known as wabi-sabi, which celebrates the beauty of imperfection and transience. Wabi-sabi is about finding beauty in the flawed, the worn, and the fleeting. In calligraphy, this philosophy is embodied in every stroke. The brush does not aim for uniformity. Instead, it embraces the subtle nuances, the gentle curves, the uneven edges, and the slight irregularities that make the character uniquely alive. Look closely at the character now. It is far from perfect, yet it is beautiful. The brushstroke is not uniform. The ink varies in thickness and shade. The curves are not exact. They are organic, flowing with the energy of the artist's hand. The brush has not followed a strict, predetermined path, but instead has moved with its own rhythm, its own life. This is what makes the character so full of spirit. It is not bound by perfection, but freed by imperfection. At this point, the artist steps back to observe their work. They do not view it with a critical eye, searching for mistakes. Instead, they look at it with acceptance, seeing it as a reflection of the moment. The character, in all its imperfections, is a manifestation of the artist's spirit, their presence in that very moment. It is not something to be fixed or corrected. It is something to be appreciated. Here, we see the beauty in imperfection. The ink has pooled slightly in certain areas, creating a soft, darkened spot that adds depth to the character. In other places, the brush has lightened, creating a contrast that adds texture and movement. These imperfections do not detract from the beauty of the character. They enhance it. They add depth, personality, and life. In the world of Chinese calligraphy, the emphasis is not on achieving perfect form, but on expressing the true nature of the moment. The irregularities in the strokes are not flaws. They are marks of individuality, traces of the artist's presence in time. Just as no two moments are identical, no two brushstrokes are the same. It is the acceptance of these imperfections that gives the character its authenticity, its soul. Calligraphy, much like life, is not meant to be perfect. It is meant to be lived, to flow, to breathe. The brush moves in harmony with the artist's energy, and each imperfection that arises adds to the beauty of the work. It is through imperfection that we find the true expression of the moment, the true reflection of the self. This is the essence of calligraphy, to embrace the imperfection, to allow it to shape the work, and to find beauty in the natural flow of energy. Through Chinese calligraphy, we learn that perfection is not the goal. The beauty lies not in flawless execution, but in the natural flow of the brush, in the acceptance of the imperfections that give the work its life. Each brushstroke is an expression of the artist's spirit, and it is through embracing the imperfect that we find true harmony. As we leave this moment of creation, we carry with us the understanding that the beauty of Chinese calligraphy lies in its imperfections. Each stroke, each mark, is a reflection of life itself, unpredictable, fleeting, and imperfect. And in this imperfection, we find not only beauty, but also truth. Now, as we delve further into the world of Chinese calligraphy, we come to an essential aspect of the art, the creation of meaning. Each stroke, each curve, each brush movement is not only a mark on paper, but also an embodiment of meaning, a representation of the artist's thoughts, their intention, and the deeper truths they wish to express. Calligraphy is not just the art of writing. It is the art of creation, of bringing meaning into the world through ink and brush. Notice how, before the brush touches the paper, there is a moment of pause. The artist's hand holds the brush with calm deliberation, yet there is an energy within them, a quiet force, a presence that is about to be translated onto the page. Calligraphy is not merely the act of creating words, it is the act of creating meaning. Each stroke is a deliberate choice, a choice to express something deeper, something beyond just the visual form. As the brush begins its path across the rice paper, the meaning of the stroke begins to emerge. The brush flows, following the natural rhythm of the artist's hand. But what is being created here is not just a visual form, it is an idea, a concept, a representation of something much greater. Chinese calligraphy is the fusion of thought and action, of mind and body. With every stroke, the artist is not simply making a mark. They are conveying meaning, shaping an idea, giving life to an abstract concept. In Chinese calligraphy, each character holds layers of meaning. A single character is not just a word, but a symbol, a reflection of cultural history, philosophical thought, and personal reflection. Take, for example, the character for mountain, Shan. To write this character is not simply to form a shape, it is to evoke the vast, towering presence of mountains. The brushstroke must carry the weight, the stillness, the strength of the mountain itself. As the artist's hand moves, they must embody the essence of the character they are creating. Each stroke of the brush represents more than just a line. It carries the artist's energy, their thoughts, and their intentions. For the character mountain, the brush must be strong, grounded, yet flowing. Each stroke represents the natural contours of the mountain, the way it rises from the earth, the way it stands tall and unyielding, yet also soft in its own way, shaped by time and nature. The brushstroke mirrors this essence, moving in a way that reflects both the strength and the subtlety of the mountain. In Chinese calligraphy, the meaning of the character is inseparable from its form. The brush is not just an instrument for creating words, it is the medium through which the meaning flows. The character is shaped not only by the hand, but by the artist's connection to the world around them. The brush must move with the intention to convey the essence of the word itself. And so, as the brush moves across the paper, the character begins to take form, becoming not just a representation of a word, but an embodiment of meaning. Notice how the character has now come to life. It is not simply a set of brushstrokes, but a symbol of something much deeper. The artist's hand has shaped this character not just with technique, but with meaning. Each brushstroke carries with it the intention to communicate something greater than the visual form. And this, ultimately, is the heart of Chinese calligraphy, the creation of meaning through the act of writing. In Chinese philosophy, it is said that words have power. In calligraphy, this power is not just in the written form, but in the way the brush moves to create that form. The character on the paper is not merely a transcription of thought, it is the thought itself made tangible. The brush carries with it the weight of history, of culture, and of the artist's own personal reflections. The meaning behind each character is always greater than the sum of its strokes. The process of creating meaning in Chinese calligraphy is not just an intellectual exercise, it is a spiritual one. The artist's hand and mind must be in harmony. The brush must move, not just with intention, but with sensitivity. It must listen to the flow of energy that connects the artist to the paper, to the ink, and to the very essence of the character they are creating. This connection allows the brush to transcend the role of a mere tool, becoming an instrument of thought, an extension of the artist's spirit. As we observe the completed character, we realize that it is more than just a symbol. It is a moment in time, a reflection of the artist's thoughts, their intentions, and their energy. It is the product of not just the brush, but the mind, the heart, and the spirit. In Chinese calligraphy, meaning is not something that can be separated from form. It is inseparable. Each stroke is both a mark on paper and a manifestation of deeper meaning. In this way, Chinese calligraphy is more than just an art form. It is a practice of mindfulness, of reflection, and of creation. Each character created is a unique expression of meaning. It is a conversation between the artist and the world. And in this conversation, meaning is not just written, it is created, breathed into life through the brush, the ink, and the energy that flows from the artist's hand. As we leave this moment of creation, we carry with us the understanding that the beauty of Chinese calligraphy lies in its power to create meaning. Each character is more than just a form. It is a vessel for thought, a reflection of the artist's spirit. In every stroke, there is intention, and in every character, there is life. As we continue our exploration of the art of Chinese calligraphy, we turn our attention to a subtle yet deeply important element, the stillness between strokes. While the brush moves fluidly across the paper, creating the form of the character, there is also an invisible pause that exists between each movement. This stillness is not empty. It is filled with purpose, reflection, and intention. It is, in many ways, as vital to the process of calligraphy as the strokes themselves. At first glance, it may seem that the brushstrokes are the most important part of the creation, but in truth, it is the stillness between the strokes that brings depth and meaning to the work. This space, this quiet moment, allows the artist to center themselves, to gather their thoughts, and to prepare for the next movement. It is a time of reflection and connection. Without this pause, the brush cannot move with the same clarity or intention. The flow of energy is broken, and the work loses its rhythm. Take a moment to consider the process of writing a character. The brush moves from left to right, from top to bottom, forming each stroke with intention. But when the brush lifts from the paper, it pauses. This pause is not merely a physical rest. It is a moment of quiet contemplation. The artist is not only considering the strokes that have been made, but also the strokes that will follow. The mind and body are aligned, and the artist is fully present, engaged in the rhythm of the creation. During these pauses, the artist reflects on the work as it is unfolding. They observe the character taking shape, noting the flow of the brush and the energy behind each stroke. This stillness allows them to assess, to adjust, and to find balance. It is in these moments of quiet that the character begins to speak to the artist, its form, its energy, its meaning becoming clearer. The brush is not just a tool, it is a bridge between the mind and the paper, and it is in the stillness that this connection is nurtured. In Chinese calligraphy, this space between strokes is essential for creating harmony. Just as a breath flows in and out, the strokes must flow with pauses in between. Each pause serves to refresh the artist's mind, to bring clarity and focus, and to allow the brush to follow its natural rhythm. This pause is an act of mindfulness. It is not a break in the process, but a vital part of the creative flow. Consider the act of breathing, which is an essential part of our existence. Each breath in is followed by a breath out, a pause, a stillness, a moment of rest. This rhythm is mirrored in the act of calligraphy. As the brush moves across the paper, there is an energy that is being released. But when the brush lifts, there is a pause, a moment to absorb, to reflect, to prepare for the next movement. This pause is what gives the brush movement its fluidity. Without it, the strokes would become disjointed, lacking the grace that comes from flow and continuity. As we observe the artist at work, notice the gentle rhythm of their hand. The brush glides across the paper, but when it lifts, there is no hurry to continue. The artist allows the ink to settle, to dry slightly, to give space for the next stroke to emerge. This is the time for the mind to clear, to release any tension, and to reconnect with the process. It is a time to let go of any distractions, to focus entirely on the brush, the paper, and the next movement. These moments of stillness do not signify a lack of action. Rather, they are a necessary part of the process. It is in the pause that the artist reconnects with their intention. They take stock of the work they have done, allowing the character to reveal itself. Each pause becomes a part of the story of the character. It is in the silence that the brush truly speaks. Much like the ebb and flow of tides, the stillness between strokes is what gives the calligraphy its rhythm. The brush moves, but it moves with intention. Each stroke is a reflection of the artist's inner state, but it is only when the brush lifts and the mind pauses that the true essence of the character can emerge. This stillness creates space for the artist's energy to align with the character they are creating. It allows the brush to move freely, without tension, guided by the artist's focused mind. Think of the stillness between strokes as the space between thoughts. Our minds are constantly moving, constantly shifting, yet it is in the moments of quiet between thoughts that clarity arises. In Chinese calligraphy, this clarity is found in the pause. It is the space that allows the artist to realign with their breath, with their intentions, and with the character they are creating. Without this space, the brush is merely moving through the motions, without the depth and meaning that comes from mindful attention. As the artist prepares for the next stroke, there is a subtle pause, no sudden movement, no rush. The brush is gently lifted, and the artist's mind is clear. They take a breath, and in this moment, the next stroke begins. The pause is not a gap, it is a moment of profound connection. It is where the brush and the artist come together in perfect harmony. This is where the true magic of calligraphy happens, where intention and movement meet in stillness. Now, as we look at the character taking shape, we see how the stillness between strokes has allowed the brush to move with fluidity and grace. The character is unfolding, but it is unfolding at its own pace. There is no rush, no pressure. Each stroke emerges naturally, following the rhythm of the brush, guided by the artist's calm mind. The pauses between strokes have given the work its rhythm, its flow, and its meaning. Each character is not just a result of the brush's movement, it is the result of the space between the strokes, where reflection, intention, and mindfulness align. Eventually, when the character is complete, the artist steps back to observe. The character rests on the paper, its form full of energy, life, and meaning. And yet, even in its completion, there is stillness. The pauses between strokes have allowed the character to come to life, but it is in the final stillness that the character truly speaks. It is in this space that the meaning becomes clear, that the energy settles, and that the work is allowed to be fully understood. As we leave this moment of stillness behind, we carry with us the knowledge that the beauty of calligraphy is not just in the strokes we make, but in the spaces between them. It is in the quiet pauses that the brush finds its rhythm, its flow, and its true meaning. In these moments, we are reminded that stillness is not emptiness. It is the source of clarity, connection, and depth. As we arrive at the conclusion of our journey into the art of Chinese calligraphy, we come to a place of quiet reflection, a moment where we can step back and take in the entirety of what has been created. The brush has moved, the ink has flowed, and the character now rests on the paper, complete. But this completion is not just a conclusion. It is, in a sense, a new beginning, an invitation to reflect, to learn, and to understand the deeper harmony that exists between the artist, the tools, and the world around them. In every brushstroke, there has been a delicate balance of movement and stillness, intention and flow. The artist has guided the brush with care, but they have also allowed themselves to be guided by it. Chinese calligraphy, at its essence, is not simply a technical skill. It is a practice of mindfulness, of presence, and of connection. Each stroke, whether light or bold, fluid or firm, contributes to the unfolding of meaning. The character on the page is not just a word. It is a living expression of energy, a moment in time made tangible. As we step back and reflect on the completed character, we are reminded that the process of creation is not linear. It does not simply follow a beginning and an end. Creation in Chinese calligraphy, like life itself, is cyclical. The brush moves, the ink flows, and the character takes form. But once the character is finished, it is not left behind. It continues to live in the space around it. It carries with it the spirit of its creation, the energy of the artist's hand, and the thoughts that guided the brush. In the final reflection, the artist does not just observe the completed character. They observe the process. They reflect not just on the strokes, but on the intention behind them. Each character is a culmination of thought, energy, and mindfulness. And as the artist steps away from their work, they are aware that the true value of their creation is not in the character itself, but in the act of creating the flow of energy that has moved from within them and out into the world. Calligraphy is not an isolated act. It is a conversation, a connection between the artist and the paper, the ink and the world. It is in this conversation that meaning arises. It is through the brush that the artist expresses their inner world, their reflections, and their connection to the universe. And even after the brush has lifted, the conversation continues. The character stands as a symbol, a bridge between the artist and the viewer, between the mind and the world. Now, as we look at the character, we see it for what it truly is. It is not merely a series of strokes or marks. It is a living expression. The brush has moved and the ink has dried, but the energy of the work remains. The meaning continues to resonate, even in stillness. Just as the artist has put their thoughts and energy into the work, the character now holds that energy within it. It is a piece of the artist's spirit, of their mindfulness, and of their connection to the present moment. In the stillness that follows the completion of a character, the artist finds peace. The character rests on the paper, but it is not finished. It continues to live, to breathe, and to speak in its own way. The meaning does not end with the final stroke. It is ever present, ever flowing, just as the brush itself is ever moving, guided by the hand of the artist. In this stillness, the work is allowed to settle into the space it occupies. The character exists not as a final product, but as a living presence, one that continues to hold meaning, energy, and connection. As the artist steps back and observes, they realize that this reflection is not an end, it is a continuation. The act of creating has been completed, but the character now takes on a life of its own. It has moved beyond the artist's hand, and it has become part of the world. And in this reflection, the artist finds not only peace, but understanding. The process of creation, the flow of ink, the connection to the brush, these are the true elements that define the work. Chinese calligraphy is not just about the act of creating, it is about the process of becoming. Each stroke is a moment, and each moment contributes to the unfolding of the character. When the character is complete, the artist reflects not on the completion itself, but on the journey of the brush, the rhythm, the energy, and the flow that has brought the character to life. At this stage, the artist steps back, observing the character one last time. They are not looking for flaws or mistakes. They are not thinking about how the work could be different. They are simply appreciating it for what it is, a moment of expression, a piece of the artist's soul captured on paper. It is not the result that matters. It is the journey of the brush, the movement, the pauses, and the connection that brought the character to life. In Chinese calligraphy, there is a deep understanding that creation is not just an individual act, but a part of a larger, interconnected process. The brush moves, the ink flows, and the character takes form. But the process does not stop with the completion of a single piece. The work, the energy, the spirit, all continue to move, to grow, and to evolve. Each brushstroke is part of a greater cycle, a greater conversation, one that extends beyond the artist and beyond the paper. Just as the brush moves across the paper, so too does life move forward, flowing, shifting, evolving. The brushstroke is not an end, but a continuation. And as the artist reflects on their work, they realize that it is not the final result that matters, but the journey itself. The process of creation, of reflection, of connection is what truly defines the work. And as the journey continues, the character will live on, forever a part of the flow of energy, thought, and spirit. As we conclude this exploration of Chinese calligraphy, we are reminded that the journey of creation is never truly finished. The brush moves not just across the paper, but through time, through thought, through spirit. Each character is a reflection of a moment, but it is also part of a greater cycle, a cycle that connects us to ourselves, to others, and to the world around us. The journey of the brush continues long after the strokes are made, and in this journey, we find meaning, connection, and peace. As we reflect on the art of Chinese calligraphy, we come to understand that the journey of creation does not end with the final stroke. It extends beyond the paper, beyond the ink, beyond the brush. Calligraphy at its core is not merely about creating characters, it is about the act of becoming, of connecting deeply with the world and with oneself. Each brushstroke is not just an artistic act, it is an internal journey. And so, as we conclude our exploration, we must understand that the journey of the artist, much like the journey of the brush, continues far beyond what is visible. At first glance, Chinese calligraphy appears to be a linear process. The brush moves across the paper, creating shapes that gradually form characters. But in reality, calligraphy is cyclical. It is a process that transcends the moment of creation. Once the brush has lifted, the energy of the character continues to flow both in the mind of the artist and in the work itself. Every character carries with it a piece of the artist's journey, and as it rests on the paper, it invites the viewer to embark on a journey of their own. Every character created in Chinese calligraphy is not just a symbol, but a reflection of time, energy, and intention. The process of writing is an ongoing conversation between the artist and their environment. Each stroke carries with it the weight of history, the spirit of the moment, and the artist's connection to the world around them. And though the character may be complete, it is not the end. It is merely a reflection of a moment that has passed, a moment that continues to resonate in the artist's heart, in the ink, and in the space it occupies. Think of the journey of the brush as an extension of the artist's life. The brush moves across the paper, but it is also an extension of the artist's thoughts, their energy, and their intentions. The artist's breath, their hand, their mind all contribute to the movement of the brush. This is not just a series of strokes, it is a representation of life itself. Each stroke is a step in the artist's journey, and the paper serves as the canvas for that journey. The work does not belong solely to the artist. It exists in the space between the artist and the world, an offering of energy and connection. The completed character is not an isolated entity. It is part of a larger cycle. Once created, it will continue to resonate in the world. It may hang on a wall, rest in a book, or simply exist in the space where it was created. But wherever it goes, it carries with it the journey of its creation. It is a symbol of the artist's thoughts, but also of the world that has shaped those thoughts. The journey of the brush, like the journey of life, does not end with completion. It continues, moving through the world, touching others, and becoming part of something larger. Just as the brush moves through the paper, so too does the energy of the artist flow through the world. Each character, once created, becomes a part of the ongoing cycle of creation, reflection, and connection. The artist has completed their part, but the journey continues, taking on new meanings, new forms, and new connections. Now, as the artist reflects on their work, they realize that it is not the final result that matters, but the journey itself. The process of creation, of reflection, of connection is what truly defines the work. The act of creation is a mirror to life, constantly evolving, always flowing. In the same way, the energy of the brush moves, and the character created on the paper becomes part of that movement. It is no longer a static object, but a piece of the ongoing flow of thought and energy. Each character created in Chinese calligraphy is more than just a work of art. It is a part of a larger cycle, a cycle that connects the artist to the paper, the brush to the ink, and the world to the artist's spirit. The journey of creation is not linear, it is cyclical. It continues long after the brush has lifted, long after the character has been completed. It flows into the world, taking on new meanings, new interpretations, and continuing the journey that began with a single stroke. Just as the brush moves across the paper, so too does life move forward, flowing, shifting, evolving. The brushstroke is not an end, but a continuation. And as the artist reflects on their work, they realize that it is not the final result that matters, but the journey itself. The process of creation, of reflection, of connection is what truly defines the work. And as the journey continues, the character will live on, forever a part of the flow of energy, thought, and spirit. As we conclude this exploration of Chinese calligraphy, we are reminded that the journey of creation is never truly finished. The brush moves not just across the paper, but through time, through thought, through spirit. Each character is a reflection of a moment, but it is also part of a greater cycle, a cycle that connects us to ourselves, to others, and to the world around us. The journey of the brush continues long after the strokes are made, and in this journey we find meaning, connection, and peace. As we arrive at the conclusion of our journey into the art of Chinese calligraphy, we come to a place of quiet reflection, a moment where we can step back and take in the entirety of what has been created. The brush has moved, the ink has flowed, and the character now rests on the paper, complete. But this completion is not just a conclusion. It is, in a sense, a new beginning, an invitation to reflect, to learn, and to understand the deeper harmony that exists between the artist, the tools, and the world around them. In every brushstroke, there has been a delicate balance of movement and stillness, intention and flow. The artist has guided the brush with care, but they have also allowed themselves to be guided by it. Chinese calligraphy, at its essence, is not simply a technical skill. It is a practice of mindfulness, of presence, and of connection. Each stroke, whether light or bold, fluid or firm, contributes to the unfolding of meaning. The character on the page is not just a word, it is a living expression of energy, a moment in time made tangible. As we step back and reflect on the completed character, we are reminded that the process of creation is not linear. It does not simply follow a beginning and an end. Creation in Chinese calligraphy, like life itself, is cyclical. The brush moves, the ink flows, and the character takes form. But once the character is finished, it is not left behind. It continues to live in the space around it. It carries with it the spirit of its creation, the energy of the artist's hand, and the thoughts that guided the brush. In the final reflection, the artist does not just observe the completed character. They observe the process. They reflect not just on the strokes, but on the intention behind them. Each character is a culmination of thought, energy, and mindfulness. And as the artist steps away from their work, they are aware that the true value of their creation is not in the character itself, but in the act of creating the flow of energy that has moved from within them and out into the world. Calligraphy is not an isolated act. It is a conversation, a connection between the artist and the paper, the ink and the world. It is in this conversation that meaning arises. It is through the brush that the artist expresses their inner world, their reflections, and their connection to the universe. And even after the brush has lifted, the conversation continues. The character stands as a symbol, a bridge between the artist and the viewer, between the mind and the world. Now, as we look at the character, we see it for what it truly is. It is not merely a series of strokes or marks, it is a living expression. The brush has moved and the ink has dried, but the energy of the work remains. The meaning continues to resonate, even in stillness. Just as the artist has put their thoughts and energy into the work, the character now holds that energy within it. It is a piece of the artist's spirit, of their mindfulness, and of their connection to the present moment. In the stillness that follows the completion of a character, the artist finds peace. The character rests on the paper, but it is not finished. It continues to live, to breathe, and to speak in its own way. The meaning does not end with the final stroke. It is ever present, ever flowing, just as the brush itself is ever moving, guided by the hand of the artist. In this stillness, the work is allowed to settle into the space it occupies. The character exists not as a final product, but as a living presence, one that continues to hold meaning, energy, and connection. As the artist steps back and observes, they realize that this reflection is not an end, it is a continuation. The act of creating has been completed, but the character now takes on a life of its own. It has moved beyond the artist's hand, and it has become part of the world. And in this reflection, the artist finds not only peace, but understanding. The process of creation, the flow of ink, the connection to the brush, these are the true elements that define the work. In Chinese calligraphy, there is a deep understanding that creation is not just an individual act, but a part of a larger, interconnected process. The brush moves, the ink flows, and the character takes form. But the process does not stop with the completion of a single piece. The work, the energy, the spirit, all continue to move, to grow, and to evolve. Each brushstroke is part of a greater cycle, a greater conversation, one that extends beyond the artist and beyond the paper. As we close this chapter of our journey, we reflect on the larger meaning of what we have experienced. The beauty of Chinese calligraphy is not simply in the brushstrokes or the characters, it is in the process itself. It is in the mindfulness, the flow, the stillness between strokes. It is in the connection that exists between the artist, their work, and the world. Each stroke is a reminder that creation is not an end, but a continual unfolding, a journey of energy, spirit, and connection that never truly stops. In Chinese calligraphy, we find that creation is not just about the end result. It is about the journey, the process, and the connection. Each stroke, each pause, each reflection contributes to a larger cycle that transcends the moment of creation. And in this cycle, we find the true essence of calligraphy, an art that is not just written, but lived, breathed, and experienced.